The air inside the Xylar Dominion ship smelled of metal and chemicals. Every breath carried a taste of cold machinery and fear. In the lowest part of the ship, behind a heavy cell door, sat a human, Dr. Elias Gray. His hands were scarred, his uniform torn, but his eyes still burned with quiet strength. He had been a field medic on a small humanitarian mission. His team had been captured when the Dominion attacked the relief ship Hope's Mercy. Everyone else was gone now. Only Elias remained alive, locked away as a prisoner of a ruthless empire. Outside his cell, 2 tall Xylar guards stood watch. Their scaly skin shimmered under the red lights. They were known for their cruelty and discipline, but even they felt uneasy around this human. He was strange. He never begged. He never shouted. He simply sat, waiting, observing. One day, a heavy alarm echoed through the corridors. The guards rushed toward the upper decks, shouting in their alien tongue. The ship shook as if something had exploded. Moments later, one of the guards returned, carrying another soldier in his arms. The injured alien was bleeding from a deep wound on his side, his breathing weak. "Put him here," Elias called out through the bars. The guard growled, "Stay silent, human. This is no concern of yours." But Elias's voice was calm. "If you don't stop the bleeding, he will die in minutes." "I can help," the guard hesitated. The Dominion soldiers never accepted help from captives, especially humans. Yet the dying soldier gasped in pain, and panic showed in the guard's eyes. After a tense pause, he unlocked the door and shoved the wounded alien inside. "Do anything foolish and I will crush your bones," the guard warned. Elias nodded. Understood. He quickly tore strips from his own shirt, using them as bandages. The medical tools he had once used were gone, but his mind remembered every lesson, every field technique. He pressed hard on the wound, checked the pulse, and whispered softly as he worked. Minutes passed. The injured alien's breathing grew steadier. The bleeding stopped. When Elias stepped back, both guards stared at him in disbelief. Their kind did not understand why a prisoner would save his enemy. The guard muttered, "You humans, you heal even those who hurt you." Elias gave a tired smile. That's what being human means. From that day, rumors spread across the ship. The crew whispered about the strange human medic who could heal wounds without advanced technology. Some called him a fool. Others began to respect him quietly. Even Captain Vraxtil, the cold and calculating commander of the ship, grew curious. A few days later, the captain visited the medical bay. His tall figure loomed over Elias, his armor glowing faintly blue. "You are the human called Elias Gray?" the captain asked in a deep voice. Elias looked up. "Yes, Captain. I heard you saved one of my soldiers." "Why?" "Because he was dying," Elias replied simply. "And because I could." The captain studied him carefully. "Strange. Most prisoners would wish death upon their captors." "I am not most prisoners," Elias said quietly. "I am a doctor. My duty is to preserve life, not take it." For a long moment, the alien commander said nothing. Then, with a slow nod, he spoke again. "Very well, human. You will work in our infirmary. You will treat my soldiers. Disobey once and I will end you." Elias accepted. He had no choice, but deep inside he was glad. If he could save lives, then maybe he could also learn something about this empire. Maybe someday he could escape. Weeks passed. Elias worked silently in the alien medical bay. Their equipment was strange to him. Machines that hummed with energy, vials of glowing fluids, scanners that could see inside a body without cutting it open. Yet he adapted quickly. Humans were known for that. He studied the Xylar anatomy, learned their languages, and treated soldiers from many alien species. Most avoided looking at him, but some began to speak softly, thanking him after each treatment. The guards still watched him closely, but they started to respect his calm nature. Even when they insulted him, he never responded with anger. He only worked harder. One evening, while Elias was cleaning medical tools, the ship shook violently. A loud alarm blared. The lights turned red. The intercom crackled with the captain's voice. "Attention, crew! A containment breach in the biolab. Unknown infection spreading. Quarantine all sectors." Panic filled the corridors. Soldiers rushed past the medbay, coughing and shouting. Elias grabbed a mask and stepped outside. A strange mist floated through the air. Within minutes, several aliens collapsed, their bodies shivering and their skin turning gray. Elias forced open a door and dragged 2 soldiers inside. "I need data, anything about the infection." He called to the nearby technician. It came from the experiment chamber, the technician gasped. The spores mutated. It's killing everyone! Elias opened the alien medical database, scanning through their records. The Dominion scientists had no cure. The infection was spreading too fast, dissolving cells from the inside. He looked around the lab and saw medical supplies, protein serums, nanite injectors, cooling compounds. None were designed for humans, but Elias's mind worked fast. He began mixing the alien chemicals with human-style plasma formulas he remembered from his old training. He whispered to himself, "If I can slow the molecular decay, maybe the nanites can stabilize their tissues." As the hours passed, the medbay turned into a battlefield of science. Elias treated one patient after another, ignoring his exhaustion. He modified alien nanites to deliver medicine directly into infected cells. He even used the Dominion's machines to sterilize the air, creating safe zones around the injured. Finally, after a long night, the infection stopped spreading. The soldiers who had been near death began breathing normally again. The gray color faded from their skin. Captain Vraxtil entered the medbay, his usually proud posture now shaken. You stopped it?" Elias nodded weakly. "For now. But you must destroy the source of the spores. If they mutate again, you'll face something even worse." The captain's sharp eyes softened for a brief moment. "You saved my ship, human. You saved thousands of my soldiers." "I saved lives," Elias replied softly. "That's all I ever wanted." Vraxtil stared at him, then turned to his officers. "Release his chains. From now on, Dr. Gray will have full access to our medical systems. He is under my protection." The crew looked shocked. A human prisoner with full access. It was unheard of. But none dared to argue. They had seen his power, the way he fought death itself with only knowledge and courage. As Elias stood among them, tired but alive, whispers began to spread through the ship again. "The human healed us. He knows how to fight death. Is he even mortal?" One alien technician gave him a new title in their tongue, a word that roughly translated to flesh weaver. The name spread quickly. The Dominion soldiers began to speak it in awe and fear. Elias did not understand the weight of it yet. To him, he was just doing what a doctor must do. But in the hearts of the Xylar, something had changed. For the first time, they saw a human not as a weak, soft creature, but as a being who could command life itself. Late that night, Elias sat alone in the medbay, staring at the stars through the viewport. Somewhere out there, Earth still existed. Somewhere, his people still fought to survive. He didn't know if he would ever see them again. But he had made a choice. If he must live among the stars, then he would live as a healer, even if it meant healing his enemies. He whispered to the empty room, "If kindness is my only weapon, then let it be the sharpest one." The hum of the ship surrounded him, and the stars glowed softly beyond the glass. Far away among countless worlds, the story of the human medic who saved an empire began to travel. It would grow, change, and twist into myth, but for now it was only the beginning. A beginning born not of war, but of mercy. Weeks passed since Dr. Elias Gray had saved the Xylar Dominion ship from the deadly infection. The crew had slowly begun to respect the quiet human who worked harder than anyone else aboard. His small medical lab, once a place of suspicion, was now the safest room on the ship. Even the captain, Vraxtil, had started visiting him not as a warden, but as a curious observer. Elias kept busy every day, studying alien biology, creating new medicines, and treating soldiers who returned from battles. Yet deep inside, he still dreamed of freedom. He often looked at the stars beyond the glass walls, wondering how far Earth was and whether humans were still alive out there. One morning, the door of the medical bay slid open with a loud hiss. Captain Vraxtil entered with 2 guards. His eyes glowed faintly in the dim blue light. "Dr. Gray," he said in his deep, commanding tone, "you are being transferred." Elias frowned. "Transferred? To where?" "To Kareth Station," the captain replied. "A Dominion science base. The High Council has heard of your success with the infection. They want you to work under the Biowar Division." Elias's stomach tightened. "Biowar? I'm a doctor, not a weapon maker." The captain gave a low growl. "You will do as commanded. Refusal means death. But if you cooperate, you will have better living conditions and full research access." Elias took a slow breath. "Very well, I'll go, but I will not create anything meant to harm." Vraxtil looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. Your moral code is strange, human, but perhaps that is why they fear you. Kareth Station floated above a red planet like a silver ring in space. It was large, surrounded by smaller defense satellites. When Elias arrived, escorted by guards, he noticed how cold and sterile everything looked. Every hallway shone white, and every sound echoed like it belonged to a machine, not a living world. A tall alien scientist with glassy skin met him at the docking bay. You are the human medic, the alien said, scanning him with a small device. I am Research Commander Salvan. You will assist us in developing bio-enhancements for Dominion soldiers. You will make them stronger, faster, more resistant to death. Elias replied quietly. I can improve healing, but not to make killers. Salvan's expression didn't change. You will do as we say. Elias sighed but followed. He was given a small lab, clean, well-equipped, and guarded day and night. They gave him alien assistants who watched him work. Every move was recorded. He was no longer a prisoner in chains, but a prisoner of science. Still, Elias worked. He learned fast. The Dominion's technology was far beyond human medicine, yet full of arrogance. They forced their biology to obey without balance. They made cures that harmed other systems, and weapons that destroyed even their own troops. Elias began secretly adjusting the formulas. He made serums that healed faster, yes, but also carried hidden checks. They would only function properly if the person's body chemistry showed signs of calmness and compassion. It was his small act of rebellion, a quiet way to make sure no one could use his work for pure cruelty. Days turned into months. The soldiers came and went. Some recovered miraculously under his care, and some grew stronger than before. But then strange things began to happen. One afternoon, a loud explosion shook the lower decks. The alarms wailed through the base. Elias rushed toward the source with a group of medics. When they arrived, they found a soldier lying on the floor, his veins glowing blue under his skin. His body twitched uncontrollably. Salvan appeared beside Elias. This was your serum, human, he shouted. What did you do? Elias quickly knelt and scanned the soldier. No, this can't be right. The serum was meant to stabilize the immune system, not... Before he could finish, the soldier screamed. His body convulsed, his muscles bulged unnaturally, and the lights flickered. Within seconds, the man's form twisted beyond recognition, breaking through his armor. Then, as suddenly as it began, his body collapsed into dust. Silence filled the room. Everyone looked at Elias. He stood slowly, pale and shaken. Something interfered with his system. Someone changed my formula, Salvan glared. We enhanced it using energy compounds. The results were... Unexpected, Elias clenched his fists. You turned a healing serum into a weapon. The commander hissed, we did what we must. The Dominion thrives through power. Elias said nothing. He looked at the remains of the soldier and felt both guilt and anger. His healing formula, his effort to save, had become a cause of death. That night he couldn't sleep. He sat alone in his lab staring at the holographic data. The mutation wasn't random. The Dominion's tampering had created an unstable reaction that could destroy entire fleets if spread. He whispered, if they keep using this, they'll end themselves. From that night forward, Elias began to act more carefully. Outwardly, he continued his research. In secret, he began adding hidden safeguards, tiny biological codes that made the formulas self-destruct if used for harm. He knew it was dangerous, but he couldn't stand by while his work was being twisted into tools of destruction. Months later, Kareth Station was chosen to test a new generation of bio-enhanced soldiers. Elias watched from behind the observation glass as the first unit stood ready. They looked stronger, taller, and faster than before. But something about their eyes unsettled him. They glowed faintly blue, the same color as the soldier who had died. Salvan smiled with pride. Behold the future of the Dominion army. The door opened. The soldiers stepped forward, moving in perfect formation. Then one stumbled. His breathing became heavy. Another followed, then another. Panic spread. Within minutes, all 10 soldiers began to shake violently. The lights dimmed as their bodies released bursts of unstable energy. Alarms screamed through the station. Elias shouted, shut down the system. Get them medical aid! But it was too late. A massive shockwave tore through the testing room. The blast shattered glass and threw everyone to the floor. When the smoke cleared, half the lab was gone, and the soldiers, once proud experiments, were nothing but shadows burned into the walls. Elias coughed through the dust, pulling injured assistants out of the rubble. Salvin lay nearby, his arm wounded. You did this, he gasped. No, Elias said, helping him up. Your pride did. The commander's eyes were full of fear. They will destroy you for this. Maybe, Elias replied, but I won't let them destroy anyone else. The explosion shook the entire station. Across the Dominion's communication network, alarms sounded. The council ordered the project to be shut down immediately. They blamed human corruption and declared Elias a biological threat. He was no longer a captive scientist, he was now an enemy. Guards came for him, but by the time they reached his lab, he was gone. His data drives were missing. The files were corrupted with strange codes. Wherever his work had been stored, it now carried a message written in the human alphabet. Compassion is the cure. Cruelty is the disease. Elias had escaped through the maintenance tunnels, taking only what he needed: a small medical kit, a drone controller, and a map of nearby trade routes. He boarded a stolen shuttle and launched into the void. Behind him, Kareth Station burned silently against the red planet's surface. As his ship drifted into the stars, Elias sat in the pilot's seat, breathing heavily. His hands trembled. He had never wanted this to become the center of chaos. He only wanted to heal, to bring life, not death. But now his knowledge had become something dangerous, something the Dominion would never stop hunting. He whispered to himself, I tried to save them. And I became their curse. The stars stretched endlessly before him. Somewhere out there were people still suffering. Slaves, refugees, broken worlds. Maybe he could still help them. Maybe he could turn this curse into hope. He activated the ship's stealth systems and disappeared into the dark. Far behind him, the Dominion's network buzzed with fear. Reports poured in from other stations, systems collapsing, nanites rebelling, healing serums turning into useless dust. None could explain it, but one message appeared again and again in intercepted signals. The human has turned medicine into a weapon. He walks among the stars. They started calling him a new name, the Human Plague Doctor. Yet somewhere deep in space, Elias Gray only thought of one thing: not revenge, not glory. He thought of the promise he made long ago to heal, even when the universe didn't deserve it, and thus, the legend of the human medic began to spread, not as a story of war, but as a story of mercy that terrified empires. The stars stretched endlessly outside the small shuttle as Dr. Elias Gray drifted through space. The hum of the engines was the only sound. He sat in the pilot's seat, tired but alert, his eyes fixed on the faint light of distant worlds. Behind him, the red glow of Kareth Station faded into nothing. He had escaped the Dominion, but not without cost. They would hunt him now. His name, once whispered with respect, was now a warning. To them, he was no longer a healer. He was a danger, a mistake that needed to be erased. Elias leaned back, running a hand through his messy hair. I didn't want any of this, he said softly. I just wanted to help. The small medical drone hovering beside him beeped quietly. It was his only companion, a round machine with blinking lights which he had reprogrammed to assist him. He had named it Mira. Set a course for the nearest free colony, Elias said. The drone chirped and displayed a map of nearby star systems. One route glowed green. Destination, Haven 9 Colony, the drone announced. Elias smiled faintly. Let's see if Haven 9 lives up to its name. The journey took several days. Along the way, Elias monitored the Dominion's transmissions. Every channel was filled with his name. They called him the Flesh Weaver, the Plague Doctor, the Human Curse. But what caught his attention most were the stories. Some claimed he could control life itself. Others said his touch brought both healing and ruin. Elias sighed. I only ever wanted to heal. How did mercy become a weapon? When the shuttle finally reached Haven 9, he was greeted by a small, rough-looking colony floating above a blue-green planet. The station was old, built from recycled parts and powered by solar rings. It was home to hundreds of species, traders, miners, refugees, and those who had nowhere else to go. Elias landed quietly and disguised himself as a wandering medic. He offered his help to anyone in need, injured workers, sick children, even broken robots. He never asked for payment. His kindness earned trust quickly, and soon, everyone on the station knew the gentle human doctor who healed without question. For the first time in months, Elias felt peace. But peace never lasted long in a galaxy ruled by fear. One evening, as Elias treated a child with a fever, Mira beeped urgently. Warning, incoming Dominion patrol detected. Out of 20 minutes, Elias froze. They found me. The colony's governor, an old alien named Tora, rushed into the clinic. Doctor, you have to leave. They are searching every outpost for you. I can't, Elias said. These people are sick. I can't abandon them. Tora looked desperate. If they find you here, they will destroy us all. Elias looked around at the small clinic. The children sleeping, the workers resting after long days, the hope he had built here. He knew what the Dominion was capable of. They would burn this place just to erase him. He turned to Mira. Prepare evacuation protocols for the refugees. The drone hesitated. That will expose your identity. I know, Elias replied. But they deserve to live. He began transmitting coded medical signals through the colony's old communication beacons. The signals looked like medical alerts, but they carried hidden data, navigation routes, safe coordinates, and instructions for evacuation. Every ship that received it would know how to escape quietly. When the Dominion fleet entered orbit, dozens of small transport ships began leaving Haven 9 under the cover of darkness. The patrol didn't notice at first, but when they did, it was too late. The lead Dominion officer, a tall alien with silver armor, shouted into his communicator, Find the human. Destroy the colony if you must. Elias, still in the clinic, watched the lights of the fleeing ships through the window. Mira floated beside him. Evacuation complete, it said softly. Good, Elias whispered. Then it's time. He walked to the medical console and activated the defense grid, a system he had secretly modified. Instead of weapons, he had filled it with a bioshield, a massive pulse of sterilizing nanites that would disable any biological weapon or infection. The shield expanded outward like a wave of light. Dominion ships caught in the pulse lost their biotrackers and targeting systems. Their own biotech failed. Engines stopped. Machines froze, the fleet scattered, unable to function. Human technology should not be able to do this, the officer shouted in panic. What is he? On the surface, Tora watched in awe as the Dominion ships retreated in confusion. The shield faded slowly, leaving only calm stars behind. When the chaos was over, Elias walked to the landing bay. He knew the Dominion would return with more ships. He couldn't stay. Tora met him there, his eyes full of gratitude. You saved us, Doctor. The people will never forget you. Elias smiled sadly. Don't remember me as a hero. Just remember that kindness works. Tora nodded. Still, stories will spread. They always do. Elias looked out at the stars again, then let them spread hope, not fear. He boarded his shuttle once more, with Mira following. As the engines came to life, Tora saluted. Safe travels, human medic. Wherever you go, may your light guide others. Elias nodded and took off. The small ship disappeared into the dark. In the weeks that followed, the stories did spread, but they were far from what Elias wanted. Across the colonies, people spoke of a human healer who could bring fleets to their knees. Some said he commanded living machines that obeyed only mercy. Others claimed he could make diseases vanish or appear at will. The Dominion twisted these tales further. They called him the human curse, claiming he had unleashed forbidden plagues and destroyed a military station with nothing but medicine. Fear spread faster than truth. Still, those who had met him told a different version. They said he came quietly, healed the sick, freed the enslaved, and left behind only peace. He asked for nothing. He vanished before anyone could thank him. And in his place, he left messages scratched into walls or medical logs. He healed us. He left us free. One day, while hiding in the ruins of an abandoned mining outpost, Elias intercepted a new transmission. It was from the Dominion Council. They had placed the highest bounty in history on his head, dead or alive. He shook his head in disbelief. They fear what they don't understand, Mira beeped. You have become a myth. Elias gave a tired smile. A myth can't bleed, Mira, but I can. He continued traveling from world to world. Wherever he went, people recognized the stories before they recognized him. Some begged him for help. Some feared him. And some even tried to capture him for the bounty. But Elias always stayed calm, always gentle. He used his skills to heal, never to harm. In time, he learned to move like a ghost. He would arrive quietly at colonies torn by war, heal the wounded, disable the invaders' biotech, and disappear again before dawn. And with every act of mercy, the legend grew stronger. Empires began to tremble, not because of his weapons, but because his compassion made their cruelty weaker. One night, while resting in the quiet of an asteroid base, Elias looked out at the stars and spoke softly to himself. Maybe this is who I was meant to be. Not a soldier, not a prisoner, but a reminder, to them and to us, that humanity's strength is kindness. Mira hovered beside him. Do you think they'll ever understand? Maybe, Elias said. Or maybe they'll just keep fearing the wrong things. Far away across countless systems, his message kept spreading. Refugees painted his symbol, a human hand holding a blue flame on their ships. Colonies whispered prayers for the healer of the stars. Even some Dominion citizens began to question their leaders. And though Elias Gray never claimed to be a hero, the galaxy had already chosen what he would become. To the cruel and the powerful, he was a curse. To the weak and the lost, he was a savior. As he drifted once again into the endless dark, the stars reflected in his tired eyes. He whispered the same words he had spoken long ago on that Dominion ship. If kindness is my only weapon, then let it be the sharpest one. The galaxy was changing. Wherever Dr. Elias Gray traveled, hope followed, and so did fear. Small colonies whispered of the human medic who arrived quietly, healed the sick, freed the oppressed, and vanished before dawn. But the empires of the galaxy told a different story. They called him a curse, a ghost, a being who turned mercy into terror. Elias, however, did not care about names. He cared about lives. And the more he traveled, the more he realized that his work had consequences beyond what he'd imagined. In the shadow of the Andros cluster, Elias arrived at a devastated trade station. The Dominion's patrol had attacked it weeks before, leaving the survivors weak, sick, and fearful. Children cried in the streets. Refugees huddled under broken shelters. Elias quietly moved through the wreckage, checking each person. Mira floated beside him, scanning for disease and injury. Reports indicate more than 50 injured or ill, the drone said. Elias nodded. Then we start with 50. He worked quickly, methodically. His hands moved over alien wounds and human injuries alike. He treated burns, stabilized broken bones, and administered vaccines he had improvised during his escape. In hours, the first wave of survivors could stand, walk, and even smile. The colony whispered his name before he left. The healer of the stars. It was a quiet victory, but Elias knew it would not last. Across the galaxy, the Dominion was hunting him. They had already sent fleets to intercept reports of his presence. The next system he visited was different. Here, the Dominion had built a small military outpost on a desert planet, enslaving the local population to serve as soldiers and laborers. The people lived in fear. The air was thick with tension, the sky filled with patrol ships. Elias landed far from the outpost, using a hidden canyon to approach. His shuttle's engines were silent. Mira scanned ahead, mapping guards and patrol routes. They've tightened security, Mira warned. I know, Elias said. Then we have to be faster. He moved quietly through the shadows, entering the outpost's infirmary. Inside, he found dozens of sick and wounded aliens. Many had been injured by faulty Dominion machinery or experimental weapons. Some were close to death. Elias began his work immediately. His knowledge of alien biology, combined with his intuition, allowed him to stabilize the injured. He used nanites to rebuild damaged tissue and improvised serums to neutralize infections. Hours passed. When he was done, the infirmary was alive with movement. Soldiers stood taller. Workers returned to their posts with renewed strength. Even the children smiled for the first time in months. Yet Elias knew that the Dominion would soon discover what had happened. He left as quietly as he had arrived, activating hidden systems to prevent pursuit. Weeks later, news of his deeds reached the Dominion Council. Reports claimed that fleets sent to hunt him had been disabled, their machines failing, soldiers falling ill from strange anomalies, and entire research stations experiencing catastrophic errors. The council called an emergency meeting. Commander Salvin, who had once overseen his work, spoke with a mix of fear and frustration. He is no ordinary human. Every attempt to capture him fails. Every weapon we send against him breaks down. A younger officer added, the colonies whisper his name as a savior, but the empires whisper his name as a curse. The council fell silent. None had a solution. None could explain it. It became clear Elias's work was not merely medicine. It was a force that adapted to intent. His nanites, his serums, his methods, anything he touched carried safeguards that responded to cruelty and mercy. If someone intended harm, it failed. If someone intended to protect or heal, it succeeded. The human had transformed compassion into a technology that empires could not control. Meanwhile, Elias continued to move. Across icy moons, lush planets and barren asteroids, he left traces of life where there had been death. He repaired ships damaged by storms. He healed workers poisoned by toxic factories. He freed slaves from secret labor camps, teaching them to escape safely. Everywhere he went, the Dominion followed but never caught him. Every attempt failed, and with every failure, stories of the human medic grew. Some spoke of him as a ghost that appeared in the night, leaving only healing and freedom behind. Others said he carried a swarm of nanites that could destroy armies, but only if they were cruel. Rumors spread among the empires. Where mercy exists, he thrives. Where cruelty reigns, he destroys. It was not the way Elias saw himself, but it was the truth. He had become a force, unintentional yet undeniable. One day, Elias arrived at HFY, a planet ravaged by years of civil war. Wounded civilians, soldiers, and refugees filled the cities. Starships hovered overhead, monitoring for rebellion. Elias slipped into the chaos, carrying only his medical kit and Mira. He treated the sick and wounded, stabilizing the most critical first. Then he began working on the machines, the automated medical drones the Dominion had left behind. He reprogrammed them to assist the civilians, distributing supplies and monitoring health. By the time the Dominion fleet arrived, the citizens were prepared. They evacuated safely using hidden tunnels guided by Elias's nanite signals. When the Dominion troops entered the city, they found it empty. No targets, no hostages, nothing but silent streets. One officer looked up at the sky, seeing the distant shuttle leaving the planet. The human. He escaped again, the officer muttered. From that moment, HFY became another legend in the story of the human medic. Not a conqueror, not a warrior, not a destroyer, a healer. Yet one who left empires trembling at the thought of what he could do. Back aboard his small shuttle, Elias watched the stars. Mira hovered beside him, scanning for threats. They are stronger than ever, the drone said. The Dominion will not stop hunting you. Elias nodded. I know, but I'm not running to hide. I'm running to save. Even if it terrifies the empires? Mira asked. Even then, Elias said quietly, fear is not the enemy. Cruelty is. The galaxy had begun to take notice. Colonies that had once lived in fear now whispered of hope. Even some Dominion citizens secretly assisted his work, using old medical records or hidden supplies to aid the people he could not reach. It was becoming clear. Elias was no longer a single man. He was a movement, and the empires could not stop it, not because of firepower, but because humanity itself had found a way to fight through mercy. Elias drifted silently through the stars. He did not seek glory or recognition. He did not wish for legends. But wherever he went, the stories followed. Children painted his symbol, a human hand holding a blue flame on walls and starships. Refugees passed his lessons along, teaching survival, compassion, and care. And across countless systems, the empires began to whisper, fearing the very idea of him. The human medic, the curse, the healer. He comes for no one, but he protects all. Elias looked at the stars and whispered a promise to himself. I will not stop. I will not falter. As long as there is life to save, I will continue. And with that, the galaxy began to change. Not through war, not through weapons, but through the quiet, unyielding power of a human who chose mercy over destruction. A human who made empires tremble simply by being compassionate. The legend of Elias Gray, the healer who terrified empires, was no longer a story. It was reality. The quiet hum of the shuttle filled the cabin as Dr. Elias Gray drifted through the black expanse of space. For years he had wandered from one colony to another, leaving traces of hope, healing, and freedom wherever he went. He had become a legend, feared by empires, loved by the oppressed, and whispered about in the farthest reaches of the galaxy. Yet despite the stories, Elias remained humble. He had no desire for fame or glory. His only purpose was simple: to heal and protect life. Elias had settled for a time on a small, forgotten moon in a remote system. Here he built a quiet home among cliffs and caves. Refugees who had once fled Dominion oppression arrived in small groups. He treated their injuries, taught them medicine, and helped them rebuild their lives. Children laughed again, the sick recovered, and the community grew under his care. Mira hovered beside him as he tended a group of patients. The little drone had become both companion and assistant, helping him monitor health, distribute medicine, and navigate the galaxy safely. "This place feels safe," Mira said. "No Dominion fleets. No patrols, just peace." Elias smiled faintly. "Peace is rare, Mira, but it is worth protecting." One day the calm was broken. A small shuttle crash landed near the cliffs. Elias ran to the site, expecting danger. Instead, he found a young Xylar medic, her armor scorched and her body weak from the impact. She raised her hands in surrender. "Please," she gasped. "Help me, my people. They are dying." Elias knelt beside her, examining burns and exhaustion. "Who sent you?" he asked gently. "The Dominion Council," she said, coughing. They tried to fix it, but the plague is spreading. I came for the human." "The healer." Elias's heart tightened. He had avoided direct involvement with the Dominion for years, but he knew he could not turn away from suffering, even from the enemies who had once hunted him. "You survived the crash," he said, preparing his medical kit. "That is a start. Now we save the rest." Over the next days, Elias worked tirelessly. He traced the source of the plague, studying its effects on the Xylar biology. It was a slow, deadly disease, resistant to their normal medicine. But Elias approached it as he had always done, with observation, creativity, and patience. He mixed serums from his human knowledge and modified Xylar nanites to target the infection without harming healthy cells. Mira assisted him, monitoring responses and alerting him to complications. The young Xylar medic watched in awe. She had been trained in Dominion medical science, yet Elias's approach was unlike anything she had seen. He worked quietly, never seeking praise, yet the results were miraculous. After days of preparation, he administered the treatment to the first group of patients. Their fever broke. Their strength returned. Within hours, the plague began to retreat, its hold on the colony weakening. Elias smiled. "Mercy is stronger than cruelty," he said softly. "It always has been." Word of the cure spread quickly. Colonies that had once feared Dominion retaliation now spoke of the human medic who could heal even the soldiers of their oppressors. Even Dominion officers who witnessed the cure firsthand began to question their orders, wondering why one human could achieve what fleets and technology could not. Elias did not stay to see the politics of it all. He trained the young Xylar medic instead, teaching her everything she had seen him do. He explained that medicine was not just about treatment, it was about understanding, empathy, and choice. "Do not use your knowledge to hurt," Elias told her. "Power without compassion is a weapon. Compassion without skill is hope. You need both to save lives." The medic nodded, understanding the lesson. She left the moon determined to change her empire from within, carrying his teachings to a world that had been shaped by fear. Elias watched her shuttle leave, disappearing into the stars. For the first time in years, he felt a sense of completion. He had saved lives, taught wisdom, and left a mark, not of terror but of hope. Yet he knew the galaxy would still call him a curse. Stories of his deeds had already spread far and wide. Where cruelty existed, his influence had unintentionally disrupted plans, toppled empires, and prevented the misuse of dangerous technologies. The Dominion, the Xylar fleets, and countless other powers whispered his name in fear. The human plague doctor. The flesh weaver. The curse of mercy. But Elias did not mind what they called him. To him, names were meaningless. Actions were what mattered. In the following months, he continued his quiet journey. He visited colonies ravaged by environmental disasters, treating the sick and injured. He repaired medical facilities destroyed in conflicts, sometimes teaching local doctors to continue the work after he left. In one frozen world, he healed a small village suffering from a spreading frostbite epidemic. In another desert planet, he restored water purification systems, saving countless lives from disease. Every time he moved on, he left instructions, tools, and hope. The people he helped spread his lessons, forming small networks of resistance against cruelty and neglect. And with each act, the legend grew. The empires could not capture him. The fleets could not stop him. He became a force that the galaxy could not ignore, not because he fought with weapons, but because he wielded something far stronger, mercy and skill combined. One quiet evening, Elias rested on a cliff overlooking a glowing blue lake. Mira floated beside him. "Do you ever tire, Elias?" the drone asked. "Sometimes," he replied, "but not from helping. I tire from knowing there is always more suffering to face. Still, we do what we can. That is all any human can do." Mira hovered silently, observing the stars. "The galaxy speaks your name with both fear and hope." Elias smiled faintly. "Let them. If my actions inspire hope even through fear, it is enough. Legends do not heal, people do, and people remember." He gazed at the stars and whispered softly, "I have become what I was never meant to be. A story. But perhaps that story can teach them what it means to be human." Across the galaxy, the effects of Elias's work continued. Colonies that had once been abandoned thrived. Fleets that had relied solely on technology began to question the human element, compassion, wisdom, and skill combined. Even the Dominion began to feel the subtle shift. Some of their own medics had secretly followed Elias's teachings, saving lives in secret, undermining the cruelty of the Council without violence. Elias's legacy was spreading, not as a weapon, not as a conqueror, but as a human who proved that empathy could change the universe. Finally, Elias returned to his small moon. The refugees he had saved had built homes, schools, and medical facilities. Children played freely. Families laughed. Life thrived where once there had been only fear. He stood among them, watching quietly. Mira floated beside him. "You have done much, Elias," Mira said. "Do you ever think of going home?" Elias looked up at the stars. "Home is wherever life needs me," he said. "The galaxy is full of people who need healing, and I cannot stop." "Not yet." He smiled faintly at the children running by. "Perhaps one day they will hear the stories not as legends of fear, but as lessons of hope. That is my true legacy." As night fell on the moon, Elias Gray looked at the sky, and for a moment, he allowed himself to dream, not of freedom, not of glory, not of wealth, but of a galaxy where mercy was stronger than cruelty. A galaxy where humans, though small in number, could leave a mark greater than any empire. A galaxy where hope could travel faster than fear. And somewhere deep within, he knew that the stories of the human medic who terrified empires would endure, not as a tale of destruction, but as a reminder of what it meant to be truly human. In that quiet moment, the stars reflected in his eyes and the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Elias Gray, the healer, the teacher, the unintentional legend, had become a curse only to the cruel, and a gift to the deserving. And so his journey continued.